First of all, we'll revise what we did yesterday. So this is pubic symphysis. This is the medial border of pelvis. This is the auricular process. This is the greater sciatic notch and the ischial spine. This is the lesser sciatic notch, the ischial tuberosity, the ischiopubic ramus, and back to pubic symphysis. This is the obturator foramen. Now linea alba at pubic symphysis and dorsal ligament of penis here. Then the pubic crest giving rise to pyramidalis muscle, the pubic tubercle, inguinal ligament, the artery nerve notch. But the first thing is lymph node, the lacunar ligament, the accessory obturator artery running in that, which is also called as cornua mortis, and there's a lymph node of Plauquet, and there's a vein, artery, and nerve. A vein, an artery, and a nerve. Then the pectineal eminence, pectineus muscle, then the notch for the psoas and iliacus, then the anteamphiliac spine. Anteamphiliac spine means Y-shaped ligament of Bigelow and straight head of rectus humerus. Then the sartorius on the ASIS and the inguinal ligament attached to it, and sometimes the nerve, lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh passes through the inguinal ligament. Condition is called as meralgia paresthetica. Then we go to the iliac crest, anterior two-thirds of the iliac crest, three muscles, external oblique, internal oblique, transversus abdominis, posterior two-thirds, two muscles, outer latissimus dorsi, inner quadratus lumborum. Then we go to the posterior suprailiac spine. In the posterior suprailiac spine, there is the iliolumbar ligament. Then you have the articulation of the sacrum. And from the sacrum arises the sacrotuberous ligament and the sacrospinous ligament, converting these notches into foramen, greater sciatic foramen and lesser sciatic foramen. From the greater sciatic foramen comes out the piriformis muscle, and all structures in the in this greater sciatic notch either pass above the piriformis or below it. Above passes the superior gluteal artery, vein and nerve. Below passes the inferior gluteal artery, vein and nerve. Then there are three nerves and pin structures. The three nerves are sciatic, posterior cutaneous nerve of thigh, and nerve to quadratus femoris. The pin structures are pudendal nerve, internal pudendal artery, and nerve to obturator internus. The pin structures get out of the greater sciatic foramen here and re-enter through the lesser sciatic foramen, and when they reach the ischial tuberosity, they enter a canal which is called as the Alcock's canal. And this Alcock's canal opens into the deep perineal pouch formed by the perineal membrane here and the deep fascia of the pelvic perineal diaphragm. So these are the pin structures. Here is the obturator membrane. From the obturator membrane and around it arises an obturator internus muscle, which actually goes out of the lesser sciatic notch like this. Then you have the ischial tuberosity. Ischial tuberosity is divided into a quadrangular upper portion and a triangular lower portion. The quadrangular upper portion is divided by a line into upper lateral and lower medial. The upper lateral gives rise to biceps femoris and lower medial gives rise to semimembranosus and semitendinosus. The triangular portion outer is ischial head of adductor magnus and inside is the Alcock's canal. Right? And then there is a superficial fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. Here is the perineal body, and this lines the scrotum, lines the penis. It's called as the Colles fascia here, and then goes into the abdomen as Scarpa's fascia, because subcutaneous tissue in the abdomen has two layers, a Camper's layer and a Scarpa's layer. So Camper's layer is the fat layer and Scarpa's layer is the facial layer. And then we come back here, the dorsal ligament of penis, and the dorsal vein of penis passes through this dorsal ligament, goes into the bladder veins, and if there is a damage here, there can be priapism. Anything else you want to add on to this? जितना हम लोगों ने उस दिन किया था, is this sufficient, or do you want to, or I forgot something? If not, no? Then we move on to the second thing. This time we'll make the pelvis like a basin shaped cavity. It's a basin shaped cavity. And on this basin shaped cavity is suspended by three muscles: internal oblique, transversus abdominis, internal oblique and external oblique. Then you have the iliacus and the psoas muscle. Here you have the iliacus and the psoas muscle. Then you have the nerve, the artery and the vein. Then inside, this is called as the false pelvis. This is called as the false pelvis. And this is called as the true pelvis. So the true pelvis has obturator internus muscle here. And covering this obturator internus is the obturator internus fascia. There is a tendon here, and there is a muscle like this, and this muscle is called as levator ani. So this is the tendon of the levator ani muscle, and this muscle is the levator ani. So it's what is called as the pelvic diaphragm. Anything above it is pelvis, and anything below it is perineum. The perineum, if you look at it, it has got an ischiopubic ramus on both sides, and connecting the two ischial tuberosities, there is a line which is called as the interischial line. If the interischial distance is more than 4 knuckles, then it means that the pelvis is adequate and the baby will pass through it. So that's the interischial line, and you have two triangles forming the entry into this space. One is called as the anal triangle, which is directed backwards, which passes the anus, rectum and anus, anal canal, and there is a triangle which is directed forwards, which passes the urethra and the vagina. So it is urogenital triangle, and this is the anal triangle. So this is how you can enter into the perineum. From front you can enter through the urogenital triangle, and from behind you can enter parallel to the anal canal. And the distance between, so here is the rectum, here is the rectum, and from here begins the anal canal. All right, and this anal canal goes into the, opens like this, and this ring which is formed by the levator ani is called as the anorectal ring. So the thing is that the rectum is directed forward and the anal canal is directed backwards. This is so because the levator ani, which arises from the pubic symphysis, arches around this and comes back and gets inserted into the pubic symphysis. So this sling causes the anal canal, the rectum, to angulate into the anal canal. And if this is tight, then the stool will not leak into the anal canal, right? So now you understand what anorectal ring is and how this levator ani prevents the contents of the rectum from entering the anal canal. So there is no incontinence. Now you will deal with this anal canal in a little bit of detail, okay? Because this pelvic diaphragm will give passage to three things. It will give passage to the rectum and anal canal, the gut. It will give passage to the vagina, and it will give passage to the urethra, right? So we will deal with this anal canal. Here is the rectum, and here is the anal canal. Then outside the mucosa of the rectum are the circular muscle fibers. And then you have the longitudinal muscle fibers. And these longitudinal muscle fibers, this is the circular one. And these longitudinal muscle fibers would combine with the fibers of the levator ani. So circular fibers, longitudinal fibers, and fibers of levator ani, these would form the anorectal ring. Okay? Till here rectum is directed forwards. From here anal canal is directed backwards. And then the first thing that you see is folds in the mucosa. These folds are called as columns of Morgagni. Have you got a pen or something so that it works? Okay, so these are called as columns of Morgagni. Then you have walls which connect these mucosal folds. These walls are called as walls of Ball. And this line is called as dentate line. Then you have the junction of the endoderm, which is the gut, and the ectoderm, which is the skin. You remember the junction of the endoderm and ectoderm creates a white line here, and this line is called as white line of Hilton. This is the site of the cloacal membrane in imperforate anus. Outside this you have a muscle which causes the shrinking of the anal opening, and because of the postage stamp effect, any stool which is sticking here is left off. So it's a self-cleaning mechanism, and this is called as corrugator cutis ani. Alright, and here you have the anal verge. So this white line of Hilton is the junction between the portal system which drains into the liver and the caval system which drains into the right atrium. So what happens when the portal system is blocked? Then these veins, the blood flows back through the portal system into the caval system, and you have the piles here. You will have piles at this junction. Piles are thickened, tortuous, bleeding veins because of portal back pressure, where blood is trying to get into the caval system at the white line of Hilton. Right? And of course, there are the circular muscle and the longitudinal muscle fibers that come around here. Outside this, between the anal canal and the obturator internus, is the ischiorectal fossa. So, if we make the pelvis like this, and if we make the obturator internus like this, and if we make the levator ani like this, and if we pass the anal canal through its center like this, then this is the ischiorectal fossa, and there is a fascia lining this over like this, and here is the Alcock's canal. Here is the Alcock's canal. So this pudendal nerve and artery would first go up, then on the inner surface of levator ani, and then reach the rectum and anal canal. So these are the inferior rectoanal or rectal artery, vein and nerve. Right? So till you are in the ischiorectal fossa, there is no problem. Now, one important thing is that if there is a connection between the anal canal and the skin, this is called as fistula. And if this fistula is below the anorectal ring, it will not leak. So it can block here, it can collect here, cause an ischiorectal abscess, but it will not leak stool. But supposing this ischiorectal fossa is above the anorectal ring, it's a high fistula, then it will leak stool. And the second thing is that what do you do to this fistula? You put a knife here and you make it continuous with the, supposing this is the fistula, this is the anal wall. What do you want to do? You want to open it into the anal canal so that it heals. So, if you have to deal with a high fistula, then what you have to do, you have to put a thread through it, and you go on tightening the thread so that this anorectal ring is gradually divided, and there is no anal incontinence. And what is the difference? What physical signs would indicate a low fistula versus high fistula? High fistula is always, there's a law to it. Okay? Huh? What is the law? What does it say? Rectum is behind, na? So high fistula will always be behind the anal canal. All right, and a low fistula will be in front, and there's a high fistula will be farther away, and low fistula will be towards it. There's a law to it, and you must know what that law is. Okay, so we dealt with rectum and anal canal. Now we'll deal with the bladder. So the bladder is a pyramidal structure like this. It's a pyramidal, so it has a superior surface, it has a posterior surface, and it has two anteromedial surfaces. On this corner attach the ureters. On this corner attaches the urachus. You would know that the mesodermal infiltration which divides the bladder, it is a vitalo-intestinal duct in the embryology, and actually the bladder is continuous right up to the umbilicus. Okay, so there can be a urachal cyst in this urachus, and there can be a cherry red tumor in the umbilicus if this is open on that side. So this is the urachus and the bladder, the urachal cyst. Then there is this ureter. There is a deep inguinal opening here, and the vas deferens or the round ligament would come like this. This is the vas deferens coming, cross the ureter from above. All right, it will cross the ureter from above and then turn downwards. All right, on this vas deferens, as it turns downward, it will have an opening of seminal vesicles. It will become the ejaculatory duct, and it will open into the urethra here. And since this urethra is bound in the prostate, this is called as prostatic urethra. Now this is resting on the urogenital diaphragm. So what will happen? This is the perineal membrane. This is the superior fascia of the perineal diaphragm. This is the inferior fascia. This is the deep perineal pouch. This is the superficial perineal pouch. So as this urethra would pass through the deep perineal pouch, this is called as membranous urethra. This is called as prostatic urethra. This is called as ejaculatory duct. This is seminal vesicle. This is vas deferens. And actually this would open over a prominence in the prostatic urethra, and this prominence is called as verumontanum. If you look at the verumontanum, you find that there is two slit-like openings of the two sides ejaculatory duct, and there may be connection in between. So this ejaculatory duct opening is called as utriculus masculinus. In the male, this is the uterus, okay, remnant of the uterus. And then there are small ducts and openings, which are the openings of the prostatic glands. So this is the prostatic urethra, this is the membranous urethra. From here the urethra would end into what is called as bulbospongiosus. If this is the ischiopubic ramus, on both sides there is bulbocavernosus, and the center there is bulbospongiosus, and the three form the root of the penis. So this is the perineal urethra. So the membranous urethra opens here and it will end into a perineal urethra. So this will end in the perineal urethra. From here the perineal urethra will become penile urethra, and it will be held by dorsal ligament of penis. Right? So you have understood the outer anatomy of of the bladder. Okay. Then we will deal with the inner anatomy of the bladder. The bladder is like this. There are the two urethric openings like this. This is called as interureteric crest. Interureteric crest. It comes down. This is called as trigone. Here the mucosa is absolutely smooth, and here outside the trigone the mucosa is rugosed. Then as you come to the trigone, you have an eminence. This eminence is by the median lobe of the prostate. This lobe actually projects. This is the posterior lobe of the prostate. There is a groove in the posterior lobe, and if you can't find this groove, that means there is prostatic cancer. This is the site of prostatic cancer. But with the median lobe, if this is enlarged, this has got a ball valve effect, and this is responsible for benign hyperplasia of prostate, BHP. So this is the difference between benign hyperplasia of prostate and cancer prostate. Per rectal examination, groove obliterated, probably it is prostatic cancer. So here you see the median lobe, bulge of the median lobe. This trigone ends into the bulge of the median lobe, and here is the beginning of the prostatic urethra. It's resting on this membrane. This is the deep perineal pouch. This is the superficial perineal pouch. It will cross the deep perineal pouch. It's called as membranous urethra. It is surrounded by a circular muscle, and the circular muscle is supplied by the pudendal nerve of both sides. So what happens that even when urine leaks from the internal sphincter, this will be the muscular part of the bladder, and here will be the internal sphincter. So even when the urine leaks from the internal sphincter to the prostatic urethra onto the verumentanum, here will be the verumentanum, then you feel as if you should urinate, but this pudendal nerve tightens the membranous urethra and no urine leaks. Okay, then here will be the bulbospongiosus, and here will be the perineal urethra, and on this side you will have the bulbocavernosus. Now if you remember this diagram and you remember this as section of this, then you will understand all these things. Then you have the ureter going out like this, right? And you have the vas deferens coming like this, crossing it, and then going into the meeting the seminal vesicles, forming the ejaculatory duct and opening on the verumentanum. So this is the anatomy of bladder. We will deal with micturition, how it functions, and the micturition a little bit later, because then the YouTube would become too long. So we have covered rectum, we have covered the bladder, and now what we want to cover is the vagina and the uterus. So this is the bladder, and posterior to it is the vagina. Here is the cervix, and the uterus is sort of pulled forward over the bladder, pulled forward by the round ligament. So this angle doesn't allow the uterus to prolapse through the vagina. This angle is important. In pregnancy, because of the baby, this angle is lost, and therefore when the uterus contracts, the baby can descend. Therefore, after pregnancy, another thing that prevents is the cervical ligaments. They connect the cervix to the sides of the pelvis, they connect the cervix to the pubis, and they connect the cervix to the coccyx. So the ligaments of the pelvis, which are thickening in fascia transversalis above the levator ani muscle, they prevent prolapse, and this angle also prevents prolapse. Because if it's like this, then this can't prolapse through this. All right. Then what happens? That here is the abdominal wall, and here comes the peritoneum, and they form what is called as the vesico-ureteric pouch. And then it goes here and then over the rectum, and this is called as the recto-uterine pouch, recto-vaginal pouch, and this pouch is also called as pouch of Douglas. And what happens that here will be the deep perineal pouch, here will be the superficial perineal pouch, here will be the perineal membrane. So from the pouch of Douglas to the perineal membrane is a fascia, which is called as fascia of Denon-Villiers. And in this you can have sometimes a cyst, which is called as the perineal cyst. This fascia of Denon-Villiers is also called as this encloses a space. So the fascia of Denon-Villiers encloses a space which is called as the space of Proust. So there is a space of Proust, there is a fascia of Denon-Villiers, there is a perineal cyst. All these questions, examiners are very fond of asking questions which very few people know, because they have to distinguish between good ones and bad ones. तो जब तक गलती नहीं करोगे तब गलती करने वाले सवाल नहीं होंगे, तब तक हाउ कैन यू डिस्टिंग्विश बिटवीन गुड एंड बैड पीपल. ओके, so we have this space of Proust is also called as the space between water and winds, because bladder is water and rectum is winds. Okay, so you may have to remember pouch of Douglas, fascia of Denon-Villiers, space of Proust, and all those. Okay, so this finishes the. I'll tell you one thing more, and that is, if you are looking at the vagina from in front, here is the cervix and here is the uterus. Then from both sides are the fallopian tubes like this. And from this peritoneum is coming back like this, going over this, going like this, and then going forward. So this coming from the posterior abdominal wall, going like this. So this is what is the broad ligament. This is the broad ligament, and the uterine artery would come from the lateral wall, go through this broad ligament, climb up, and then become the fallopian artery. So what you have to do when you are doing hysterectomy, you have to sort of ligate the tube, and then you have to bother about this artery which is entering near the cervix. And the lateral cervical ligaments are thickening in fascia which connect it to the pelvis wall and prevent it descent. Two things prevent descent. One is angle and second is ligamentous support. Okay, so when they ask you about prolapse uterus, that's what you have to remember about anatomy. So you covered the inside of pelvis.